Welcome to this brief flash stream with Black Spring. Thank you so much. If you're tuning in or if you're within the sound of this stream, hope you're doing well on your Thursday evening or maybe even your Friday morning, that is. Shout out to the loyal patrons Derek C. Williams, Killer Whale Channels, Definition of Anarchy, Chrysler Imperial H, Little Miss Goth, Cold War Jesus, Let the Truth Be Told, AZ Infidel. Thank you guys so much. Shout out to Chrysler Imperial H. Thank you so much, Chrysler, for coming in. And this stream is just going to go just a little bit. It's not going to be a rant, but it's going to have enough candor that you can pick up what I'm putting down. So there's two things. There's 2 points. 2 points. Now, for one, I'm just going to start with the first point, and that's going to be concerning. It's going to be concerning because tonight we witnessed, or some of you, if you could stomach, the finality of the DNC's convention with Joe Biden accepting the nomination from the party. So, with that said, I just want to go back just a little bit, just to do a little bit of context, give you a little bit of landscape as to where I'm coming from. This is going to be, it might come off as a bit of a hypothesis on the trajectory that I can see that I'm picking up right now. And that actually includes a little bit of complacency. It's just something I just want to speak out a little bit about. I think a lot of people, I'm not saying everyone, I'm not saying all of the people, but I think there's a bit of complacency, and I think there's danger in complacency at the point in the precipice that we are in at this time. Now, when I say that, I mean, it seems to be, I think some people are confident. They're really confident. They feel really good about, they feel really good about who they support. Now, and I'm saying that specifically on the right, which in a perfect world, which the world is not perfect, you would not need to be concerned with people not playing by the rules or making up their own rules and breaking them as they go along. You wouldn't have to worry about that, now would you? But in this instance, we do. So I think it's quite dangerous to be overconfident in President Trump's reelection, because there's already signs of debauchery, if you will. There's signs of debauchery everywhere, especially when it's coming to the amount of gaslighting and the amount of fear mongering that they're doing with this whole mail-in ballot campaign. In fact, you've got citizens marching around begging for mail-in ballots. I just say this is very sad. It's very sad where we are. Same people that are willing to go stand in lines, long lines at Costco or the grocery store, they somehow think that they're going to be better off, or that they're willing to put faith in this political climate and this exercise, that there will be no fraud. And then, of course, in the past, you've had people co-signing, oh, well, Hillary Clinton says it's fine. In fact, speaking of Hillary Clinton, she made she was, I assume, pre-recorded. I mean, their entire, I seriously believe their entire convention, if you will, was pre-recorded. And yeah, it was all pre-recorded. but it seems very sparse. And I mentioned this earlier. There was a lack of cohesion. There's just platitudes, a sprinkle of this, a sprinkle of that. There's no policies. It's all orange man bad or hate Trump, hate Trump, hate Trump, hate Trump. It's all the same wash, rinse, and repeat cycle. So let me get back on track here. Shout out to everybody that's in the stream. Shout out to JDog One Party RE. Shout out to you. Shout out to Chrysler Imperial H. And shout out to the rapper 10,000. The rapper, they're doing what they do best. And see, let me get into the point. I'm going to come back to your point. The rapper. Okay, the point is, I want to go back to the amount of complacency. So we still have a stretch here. And what my concern is that with the amount of gaslighting and the projection that they're doing, I think it's a little bit naive to think that this is going to be that November 4th is just everything's going to be magically. I sincerely don't believe that the results, with everything that's going on already with this whole mail-in shenanigans, I seriously doubt that these results. In fact, I presented an interview in which the FEC basically said, no, the FEC actually said that they would not have the results. In fact, Stacey Abrams of all people had already projected that, but this was the commissioner who has already said that they're not going to have those results, especially if you've got 3 or 4 mediums of ways to vote. And then you couple that with the amount of time, with these different time frames that people have to turn the votes back in. I've heard everything from a range of 4 days up to 11 days. I just think it's a powder keg of chaos. A powder keg of chaos and confusion. So let me keep going here. So beyond my statement on the confusion, beyond the statement of confusion, I just want to draw a little bit of attention to Bernie Sanders. Now, Bernie Sanders made quite a few appearances it's almost as if he is going to have, I think he has a bigger role in this election than I think people are not really paying attention to it. Shout out to Newman Outdoors. Thank you so much for coming in. Thank you guys so much for taking care on those channelytics. But I think Bernie Sanders is actually going to have, I think it's going to be I think he's going to have a more vital role than many people are paying attention to right now. Now, when I think about Sanders, I'm also inclined to go back to the primaries. And, I did show a video on Project Veritas in which his campaign managers, as they were being interviewed, basically said, his managers said that cities would burn. Well, what cities can you think of that have actually burned? I mean, he was pretty rah-rah the first night and rah-rah the second night and rah-rah. He was on the panel he was on quite a few panels. I mean, in fact, to me, he was projecting momentum. I think that, and this is where I'm talking about the caution, the cautionary here is that, everybody on the right, you got people on the right, or people that are going to vote for Trump, feeling confident about the awakening of people. But then you've also got you do have some level of terror or success from the Marxist. So that's why I'm saying, that's why I don't think these, I think either way, I think that these riots and all these things and these protests, these colorful protests are going to continue, or they will get worse depending on how it turns out. But it also, here again, but it also makes sense. I don't believe it was a gaffe that AOC actually endorsed Bernie. I think she endorsed what basically is going to be some bit of a shadow. He has a shadow candidacy. His policies, his foot soldiers are, to me, at work, hard at work. And I really don't think, and they're going to run the roost. I don't think they're going to be tolerant of any resistance. If you have the squad and you have the AOC, she's not going away. Do I think Joe Biden's going to run a moderate campaign, or do I think he would be moderate? No. Do I think Kamala Harris is moderate? No. They're going to do whatever they're told. Is what I actually, I'm pretty firm on that. And in many ways, that's what I'm saying. It's just, Sanders has like been resurrected, if you will, for the lack of, or reincarnated. His ideas have been he's rah because that's going into play. Big portions, I mean, even in Joe Biden's speech tonight, he talked about the Affordable Care Act and how they're going to enhance that. So it's going to be a radical deal, without a doubt. So from that, I want to move on. Thank you guys so much for tuning in to this Flash Moonlight stream. Because I just wanted to do this and kind of get my assertions or either my hypothesis out there, because this is news is only fresh. The news life is very short. The shelf life, even via social media, is pretty short. But when I go into this whole bit, I did manage to listen to Joe Biden's speech. Now, I'm going to tell you this. I don't know who his strategists are or the speech writers or whatnot, but I will tell you, considering Joe Biden, I think he had one blib. And I think he did. I'm going to be honest. I think he did well with what he was delivering. But I'm going to tell you, I think it was an assimilated speech. I think that was a copy and paste speech. Because unfortunately, I mean, I'm one of these people. I actually sit through these conventions. I sit through these press conferences. I've sat through so many things during the primaries. I sat through many things. And many parts of this speech were borrowed from previous speeches. He tells that narrative, of course, about the loss of, his first wife and his son. And of course, that is all very tragic. And that's, I can understand that. But, he was extremely comfortable with that. But I've heard it before. But then he also brings in the gaslighting on the climate change and who do we want? That question just keeps coming up. Who do we want to be? And, that question is something that we ask, that you might ask a child that. Who do you want to be? Or what? Not who, but what do you want to be? Talks about what's all on the ballot. Science is on the ballot. Safety on the ballot. The government's going to make everything all right. Whether you're a Christian or no matter what your spirituality is, your religious, nothing. I'm amazed at the amount of people that have that that, I've known people that have gone to, I've known churchgoers, and I've known Christians, and I'm telling you, there's a huge difference. And this situation with the CV-19 COVID-19, it's totally shut people's faith down, especially the churchgoers. Churchgoers went out like a light, or they folded up like a paper bag in the rain. Hang on just 1 second, guys. I really appreciate you guys for coming in. Just 30 seconds or less. Sorry about that, but I will continue. So I'm into this speech a bit now, but and then he made this. He ended up thanking Obama. Made a concerted effort, a huge effort to thank Obama in the middle of it, and I'm just thinking, how many more digs can you guys get into Donald Trump? When are you going to talk about what you're going to do? I mean, you've almost had a 50-year run. It only took 50 years for you to not be second. Which I don't think he's still not going to be number one. He still wouldn't be number one. Because I think that speech, it had to be familiar in order for him to get through it in the manner in which he did. And it really was a copy, paste, cut and paste. And of course he goes into of course they can't do anything without George Floyd. And then they bring in the late John Lewis. And I'm surprised he didn't mention Black Lives Matter. I think he did, but it was just much more subtle. And then the Green New Deal is basically what climate change. All of these things are a part of the New World Order in my mind. They can try to fix it up and all the rhetoric. Yeah, of course, he talked about how existential the threat of climate change. And of course, they're getting their digs into the gun laws. Ladies and gentlemen, Joe Biden this is going to be about the UN agenda. And you can find those points on the UN.org. You can find out exactly what those are. You don't really even need parts of the speech or the goals. It's right. You don't need to hear anything from him or that party. You just go on and see. And to me, it's ultimately, talked about immigration and college. How, I'm just thinking, yeah. Where have we heard all of this before? And of course, he had to go into the whole speech on women and Black women and the stain of racism can be wiped away. I mean, these people have vivid garb imaginations. How can you wipe anything away? Just say what you mean. And I mean, he just pretends he's such a champion of civil rights when he's done opposite of that in history. I cannot understand why anyone would be on this fake plantation. All right, shout out to the rapper who says thoughts on Netflix Cuties trailer, the hypocrisies of people supporting this trash. No, I'm not sure. I haven't seen that. I don't actually have Netflix. I ditched Netflix a while back. And I've had an in and out kind of a relationship with Netflix. And then, of course, when I found out the politicians were invested, the former administration, as I think even Rice ditched her Netflix stocks prior to Biden selecting his VP. So I had ditched it all like over a year ago, I think, something like that. 'Cause it was just so I'm not familiar with that. I'll probably look it up, but I'm just thinking people are absolutely being brainwashed or damn near hypnotized by these dark people. So shout out to everybody in the stream. I will certainly look that up. Shout out to Newman Outdoors, who says, God forbid if Crazy Bernie has a lot of voice. Yeah, well, and Chrysler said he had a question. I got a question. What would happen if Joe Biden weirdest somehow? Ooh, ooh. I think Pelosi would try to come in. I'm hearing that if then see that's the thing. I'm not sure what the Constitution says or what the law is on situations like special situations like that. But I am hearing that if this election process or the delay on the results, that you may have Pelosi stepping in somehow. I don't know. I can't really support that. I have no proof that that's factual. But I can't imagine like how many months would they. I mean, what we're going to end up with like an Al Franken situation where they're going to come up with tons of ballots. That's why I'm saying I know people want to remain positive. What is it, like 75 days? But let's just be real. These people are not going to hand this over. They're not. Especially if they can get, I don't know what they would, I'm sure there's many ways to cheat in a situation like this. But, it's all this talk about the post office and yet, like I was saying earlier, there's no relief for those people that could probably use the money for the stimulus. I mean, there's some people some people haven't been affected by it, but for those that have been, it's being held hostage. And then my other point was I found an interesting point that Tulsi Gabbard was not asked to participate in this whole clown bake. She wasn't asked to participate. And that's interesting considering, well, there again, of course, because they didn't want, I would imagine because Kamala, even though Tulsi and some, I think there were many people that outperformed Harris in the primaries, but she doesn't even get, which I guess they had to honor all the grit because Harris and Gabbard did go back and forth. They did trade quite a few times, but I do believe Gabbard was trading in facts. She was trading shots in facts. So I guess it would they can't have her showing up. So according to sources in the tweet, I'll share this one with you guys. Shout out to everybody in the stream. Thank you so much for taking your time to come in with Black Spring on your Thursday/Friday. So the rapper says, okay, hold on a second. There's an image of children blocks spelling BLM behind Liz Warren. Ay. Yeah, it's sad, but a lot of people that are going back to school, I'm going to be honest. Some people, there's just no no change in them. They're not, they and they'll know that something is wrong, and then they'll just keep going with it. So I cannot empathize with everyone, because and some people have no choice, and that's the unfortunate part. So what you see before you is a tweet from Tulsi Gabbard saying that, according to this, comes from a reason.com, multiple sources, but it says, but don't expect to hear from Gabbard during the last night of the Democratic National Convention, which was the Democrat National Convention. According to Gabbard, the DNC did not even ask her to participate in its programming. She didn't miss anything. All right. So, and then there's another fact that I find to be interesting. And according to this tweet, it says, Gabbard says, "You're correct. I was not invited to participate in any way." And it looks like someone kind of followed it up. Kennan, I think, says, reminder, at Tulsi Gabbard was one of 7 candidates that earned delegates during the presidential primary. It has been a tradition that spanned decades for any candidate who earned a delegate to be offered a speaking slot at the convention. So, she would probably spoil their whole New World Order and their climate change and their criminal justice. She probably spoiled the whole thing on the justice. Considering Harris's record, man, that would have been interesting. You think can it get more awkward? Well, I also find it interesting that Tulsi Gabbard is also, I think maybe she's just had enough, that she's not even seeking re-election in her House seat. So I'm going to do a little bit more on that. But according to this article, independent thinking is likely to be in short supply when the 117th Congress is seated. Yeah, who knows? See, shout out to the rapper 10,000. I deeply think that the Black community is beyond lost, and these female teacher unions are programming kids into this SJW cult. Yeah, there will be no history. There will be no more history. The rapper 10,000. It's all going to be what these SJWs come up with the, from projects like that 1619 project to, I don't know, they're going to be teaching all kinds of things. And who knows, it might even turn into history will be living and breathing according to their narrative and according to the way they want to shape the world, the way they want to manipulate the world. Mathematics will be, or if they quit teaching it, I mean, they are literally going to make these kids so they're figuring, look how much we had to go through to control this group of people. What are we going to do to make that make it less resistant for the future? Well, you got to make them dumb, right? You got to dumb them down. I mean, if nobody challenges you, you don't have any competition. You don't have any resistance, right? If nobody can think, if nobody can not only think, but they cannot even create and support an argument, much like their party, why not? So they're going to destroy everything. And they are, somebody said earlier today, who was it? Was it Don Jr.? I believe he was saying that they're tearing this country apart. Absolutely. They're also tearing down the potential of this place. I mean, the U.S. will not be able to compete. I think we had a lot of work to do, but can you imagine the amount of the literacy rate? I mean, you have functional illiterates, but you do have educated people. But if you tear down the communication in the Black community by eliminating grammar and ignore the importance of grammar or syntax or context or mathematical certainties, what do you think you're going to wind up with? It's, to me, it sounds like it's here again. You're going to be the state's kids. They're going to be educated based on what the state wants. And that also says to me that they could also very well be trained to do state jobs, no matter what their aptitudes are. You've got a high aptitude, maybe that person's maybe a little too smart. We better get them to scoop poop instead of being a scientist. So I say it's just a dumbing down. It's just the dumbing down. So I'm just thinking, I don't know, go out and buy every book, every book you can. I mean, I said this on one stream previously that I don't really see encyclopedias anymore. I think every now and then when I was a kid, there used to be a guy or some representative, I guess maybe they would come around and they would try to sell you encyclopedias. And back then, even encyclopedias were, I think, pretty expensive. But hey, you're getting all these resources. You've got a mini library. And to a great extent, I mean, I think that kind of kept, if you couldn't get to a library, you could go to you would have a source. But I just don't know what that cost or what those companies even go by now. I think what was a purchase, an entire set. What was it? Was over $1,000. It was at least $1,000. But you're talking about books. So we'll see. It's just but that convention was really, really hard to watch. At many times, it just looks like a bunch of commercials that they tried to run. Shout out to John Paul Antoniani. Shout out to you. Thank you so much for coming by. I really appreciate it. But it was, it's tough to watch all of these things. Oh my God, Chrysler Imperial H. Thank you so much for sharing out the stream. Yeah, but I will say I really would hope to see more out of conservatives, and I would like to see more substance and certainly more on policy. I don't know what the theme looks like. I'm wondering if it's going to be more law and order. I mean, I'm going to be honest. I just, I know there's a lot of conservatives out there, and I know there's been a bit of a new wave or phase of conservatives, but I just think that we'll see. And this is not for the sake of numbers. It's just for the sake of, I think what I'm mentioning, I'm thinking for the sake of reach, for the sake of effectiveness. I think, you not only need to be, you need people that are actually in the trenches. Shout out to you, Garrett Reed. Thank you so much for coming in. I think you need people. When I say you need people in the trenches, I think you need to hear from actual teachers, and I'm speaking about the Black community specifically. You need to hear from actual Black teachers. You need to hear from some of these schools. And I think they've done, in terms of school choice, I think they did manage to do that. I think they did manage to hear from those schools, but I think even on some other levels, I just think that there was a little bit of there's been some gaps or whatnot. But I think there needs to be an education plan. There's no way to mitigate the amount of, this. I'm just thinking, I just don't know how all of this came about, how all of these dynamics came about without anyone standing up like 10, 20, 30, 40 years ago. I mean, to me, this trajectory took off so long ago. But I don't see I don't see that, in education, that we have people on the conservative end, which I don't know. I'm not saying that I know the stats on conservative teachers, but I think it's plausible that the liberals and the progressives are pretty much dominating the education system, not just from the college perspective. I mean, they look what they've done to PBS and Arthur, and they've injected all of these shows with propaganda and rhetoric that kids, no matter what their background is, they don't have the discernment or the perspective to deal with these issues. Why should a kid, before they learn to read, why should a kid, before they actually read, why should they be talking about systemic racism? The kid probably can't even pronounce that phrase. And why would you create all of these $20 words with no argument and give people excuses not to try? That's also that's lowering people's self-esteem. Well, I figure, well, I'll never be, they might think at some point, well, I can't change the fact that I'm black and I'm a victim for life. When you give people excuses not to try, what do you think they're going to do if things get a little bit tough? Now, even for the kid that comes from a home that knows better, if you keep repeating it over and over again, at some point it starts to, well, I never was good in that subject. And, I can't change the fact that I'm black. So I'm just not going to try anymore in math. I'm just not. And see, to me, that's also, it's also an alienation. It's alienating the kid. But it's cringy that this whole election season and even almost the last 4 years has just been a race. It's all been about race. It's almost like this is a race election. Shout out to everybody in the stream. I appreciate you guys for coming in. So I'm probably going to wrap this up in about 5 minutes. I appreciate you guys coming in. But I always watch these programs, so you guys don't have to. It's hard to sit through it, but I just don't see a real platform. And that was, even Andrew Yang came on tonight. And of course they just have to talk about COVID, 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 COVID. I think that was, I think he had a two or three liner and he was out. Shout out to the rapper who says, I know that some black parents shame their kids into thinking that they cannot do any better than the white kids, even though some have not applied themselves to the work. Yeah, I don't really know that. I think I've said this before. I've had a grandparent to tell me, "Oh, well, you didn't get that because you're black." And I never really gave it that much weight. But I also didn't understand why she would say that. Because there again, it wraps you back into that whole permanent state of marginalization, or it wraps you back into, I'll never be successful because I'm black. And I never really challenged her on it because she was my grandma. But I'm just thinking, okay, how many times you say that randomly? But when I do what? But when I am successful at things, you don't bring that up. So obviously, I feel that that's more than biased. So only when I'm not quite getting what I need or what I want, or I wasn't selected for something, that's got to be the only reason. You don't know, but that's what you're saying. You didn't call the teacher or the person in charge to assess what the process was, and thereby making me grow from not winning the position or winning the role or whatever it was in school. You just said that's the reason that's it. And as a kid, those things stick with you. They stick with you whether you want them to or not. Whether you put them in the back of your mind, in the mid section of your mind, they stick with you. A shout out to the rapper who says they did turn the 2008 into a race election, only a black man versus a racist white woman, Hillary. It's so funny. Like it's so funny when you look back at 2008 because Hillary actually was she brought the whole birther thing out, and of course they use that to weaponize that against Trump. But these people know what the score is. They already know. I mean, they already knew. I think they probably already knew that Hillary wasn't going to win back in '08 because the globalists and the Bilderbergs and all the see, the rapper says, like, this whole quote reading is acting white, and this whole thing, the quote acting white BS. Oh my gosh, but there's only, I think there's a lower level IQ that accepts that. I mean, why would anybody want to be regressive? Why would anybody encourage their kid to be regressive in their progress as a student or in their developmental stages or in their self education? If you're not going to self educate because that's somehow acting white. But I will be some of these same digs were available, racist or silly digs were out there when I was a kid. They were, and they were, they were dashed on me, of course. But I'm glad that I never gave into any of that. I'm glad I just look, I'm doing what I'm doing. Too bad you're miserable. Because people are they're just it goes back to people not being confident in who they are and what they are doing. So yeah, I'm glad I wasn't that kind of I wasn't a follower in that sense. Because okay, what do you want me to do what as opposed to what? I mean, you want me to speak what? Ebonics because why? Yeah, it takes practice to it takes a conscious effort. Because as people from a cultural standpoint, people can change the way that they speak very quickly. They can go from ebonics, horrible, broken, assimilated speech to, oh my gosh, you went to school. The rapper says, my mother complains about that I don't act black enough, even though I don't speak ebonics and ghetto slang. Well, But see, even even I just think that kind of thing is taught. It's taught. It's drummed into the to your head. It's drummed into your. It's drummed in. Shout out to everybody that's in the stream. I really appreciate you guys for coming out. And I appreciate you guys for taking the care with the channelytics. I'm going to be wrapping up this stream. Thank you guys for all that you do. Shout out to Crazy Chick Sheena. How are you? Appreciate you for coming in. Chick Sheena. Oops. DJ Vision Barnett. How are you guys? I hear ya. I just had to do a little bit of reflection on the clown bake, and the roles. I think this is a future of presidencies from the left. I mean, my gosh, it's going to be a piece of. They all show up in this clown car and they just present all these individual pieces, which is actually the whole agenda. The whole agenda is presented by each one of them individually. And then all of a sudden, oh, ladies and gentlemen, we have a winner. We have a winner. The nominee is Joe Biden, and he accepted. Shout out to everybody in the stream. Because what did I say before? What was he? Andrew Yang, he came up tonight, and of course he was all about the universal basic income. And then of course you had, what was it? Elizabeth Warren overshooting her native or her progressivism with all the talk about, and I'm paraphrasing, her projecting that she would have transgenders making decisions, or transgender children as a part of panels in education. I mean, and then they just totally snubbed Tulsi. Because like I was saying earlier, of course you can't have Tulsi come up here because she exposed Kamala Harris. And now Tulsi's not even going to go for re-election on her seat. Not maybe good for her. Maybe she sees that this is just not, she doesn't want to serve that party. She served her country, and I'm going to be honest, I think that was very, very honorable, and that she did serve. Whether I agree with the party that she chose to serve, but I think she's, at least it sheds some light on that party and where they're going. It's funny that, Tulsi had she was a higher ranking primary candidate than Kamala and Cory Booker, but she got totally snubbed. So if it's all as Kamala said, it was just a debate. Okay, well then why did you guys snub? I just think that's kind of bitter. It's pretty bitter for them to snub Tulsi Gabbard after all of that. You also basically called Joe Biden. You called Joe Biden a racist, but he still he miraculously picked you as a VP. I tell you, that party is a walking contradiction. You just never know what you're going to get. But there's a lot of disappointments out there. But I tell you, it was almost like they were trying to, it was like streaming, it was like app TV. Who was that? Billie Eilish. She was like, I'm like, my gosh, is she on something right now? It's like, what is this, like the 21st century? This is Fiona Apple reincarnated. So this is not. I'm really hoping that the Republicans and the conservatives have a much different. That they at least, I mean, the production of it was all pre-recorded. Even on the pre-recording level, it was very poor. Very poor. There was no cohesion there. None. There was no message. It was all orange man bad, identity politics, and climate change is back. We have made climate change. It was all, they were back. And of course, now they're gaslighting these poor seniors, or gaslighting them on. So Joe Biden gaslighted them on, or who was it? Maybe it was Obama. The whole assortment gaslit the senior community on things from Social Security to, I've even heard people gaslighting about the USPS on even delivering medications. I'm just thinking, you guys are so pathetic. All of this because they want a debauchery, and they're gonna have it. And that's why I'm saying I think people are getting to, I think there's the opening of this was about, the opening on this stream was about complacency. I mean, a lot of people on the right are very, very confident that, that the silent majority, that's going to be what's going to take us over the hump. But I'm saying, in a perfect world, you wouldn't even have to worry about this whole mail in voting debauchery, but you do. They're not going to hand this thing over. But okay, you can celebrate and you could do that, but now is not the time. I don't know if people don't understand. We are actually at war. The battle lines were drawn a long time ago. So 75 days out, you cannot. Why would you start celebrating? I mean, I just don't know, because I did hear there was a program I was watching earlier today. I mentioned this earlier today, where there was a guy. He actually said that he was behind somebody in line. I guess they've already started voting in many places, I guess. And he was saying that the woman in front of him told him that she had already voted by mail, and she was in line in front of him getting ready to vote again. So with this kind of thing going on, see, the thing about it is the results of this election is not going to be known. It's not going to be known on November 3rd. Now, I gave you guys from the Federal Election Commissioner. She's already saying that. So I think you got to keep your variables in check. And you can't pretend like you're dealing with a group of people or we're dealing with the system the way that they wouldn't manipulate the electorate, or they wouldn't. I mean, I think people are going to be on, what is this going to be like? I don't want to compare it to the Super Bowl, but people are going to be, I think, if they don't get those results within a couple of days or within a week, but I do think it's going to be heck to neutralize. That's probably the time, the longer it takes. I've even heard people say that somebody else would have to step in if they don't know the results of the election. So what would it be? Pelosi? So I'm just thinking, before people, start throwing confetti and streamers and all these things, they need to really come back to reality. Sit down and come back to reality. They are not going to give this thing away. Yeah, we know they kick, scream, and yell obscenities and roll around on the floor. We know. But is that going to stop them? I told you guys earlier about, the Sanders campaign managers had said, if they didn't get their way, that cities would burn. Well, guess what? Cities have been burning. What do you think is going to happen if they don't get their way? Shout out to everybody in the stream. So it's just, And I'm not trying here. I say this all the time. I'm not negative Nancy or Debbie Downer or any of these things. I'm just thinking, I just think you need to stay in the fight, and you have to don't take anything for granted, or because the only thing that the only thing you're doing is actually, if you're not careful, is that you will confirm, the amount of complacency that could come out of this thing. What, or either it's just going to be how badly the cheating will be. Will they come up with 100,000 ballots after it's over? Will they come up with 100,000 ballots 6 months after it's done? As I just said, you got a range of, you've got certain states that you got 4 days. You can vote 4 days. You got some states you can vote longer than that. So there's no way in the world that all those ballots would be collected. There's no way. And then it was what a week it has been. The DNC, I mean, it was pretty laughable. I was like, yeah, pretty laughable. Shout out to Crazy Dick Sheena says, remember the case, Kitty? Yeah, yeah. And see, they don't want clean voter rolls. They don't want any of that. And of course, it was Stacey Abrams. That was a part of her. She's got her own platform. She tried to delay or obstruct that in Georgia, them cleaning the rolls, for the reason of either people had moved or deceased, or they had not participated in the process in so many years. I think those particular citizens were at risk of being purged, or when they cleaned. So she did enough to get the judge to delay the purge. She didn't want it done at all, but I think she ended up losing it. So I'm just thinking there's going to be all kinds of shenanigans. And it's going to be the same players, same script, same shenanigans, different day. I'm just thinking, so that's voter registration fraudulent. Yep. So I don't know how they see the special interest in all these things and all their campaigns that they ran. Like, what was it? A Center for, oh my gosh, what is it? Not the Center for Progress out of New York, or maybe the Brevard Center. Maybe it's the Brevard Center, the Brennan Center, or something like that. The Democrats have all these fringe elements that make everything that they want to do possible, even if it's illegal. But I don't see that on the right. They've got teachers teaching, they've got Merriam-Webster in the education system, they've got the whole whole sociology departments doing what they want to do. It's progressives. They've got the special interests, these NGOs, financiers like Soros. It's like we're dealing with a huge army. And we've lost a lot of battles in that. And I would encourage, people to start doing more on a local level if they can. But I don't know. I mean, I don't know what it's going to take, but I really think this is, you've been warned. We've been warned by a lot of people. We've been warned by a lot of people whose countries have had socialism, who's had predominantly secular values or lost all their values. We've had we've been warned by countries with flat economies. But I just don't know what we've done, what if we've done enough. I just don't. It's going to have to change. But I do think that this is it. And I think a lot of people are saying they think it's a good versus evil thing. I think it is. Rapper says voting is a right. But the fact that there's even why it's I'm gonna be honest, it's almost like changing. Why would anybody that's on this walking anyway halfway straight and on a narrow path, why would anyone try to do something as pivotal as change an election process during the election year? Why would anybody? It's like, what's that, like it's like resetting the server, or resetting the system, not knowing whether you work the kinks out or if that works. Or like I said, these people play by their own rules. They do what they want. The rapper says, I am tired of the black community being used by Democrat Party during election time. Yeah, I am too. But people choose to do nothing and just be bitter and angry and do nothing. Just not seek the truth, not dig for the truth. Being useful idiots for one cause or another. Some people say, "Oh, Black Lives Matter. Oh, that thing's almost dead," and I'm just thinking, I'm not saying I know what the background of the person was. Not that it even matters, but just thinking, I don't know that it was ever. It's not dead. That's the point. People understand that revolutionaries don't die. They exist in waves. They don't die. If that were the case, wouldn't they have? If they weren't here to stay, wouldn't they have kind of faded out with the Obama administration? No, they didn't, because they didn't die. Their agenda never dies. So the agenda is still the same. Shout out to Old Head Deuce. Nice to see you. Thank you guys so much for coming in and taking care with the channelytics. I'm not sure how I feel about the channelytics, guys. I really don't. So I'm probably gonna give you some slack on that a lot. Chrysler says all lives matter, and they absolutely do, without a doubt. Absolutely, all lives matter. All lives matter. But it's all the bullying, the mob rule, and the bullying is still going on. You can't wear a shirt that says Blue Lives Matter or All Lives Matter. I think, what was it, Walmart started that first. And what was it? What was it? Goodyear that threw their hat in the ring as well. Shout out to a rapper who says BLM has murdered more kids than saved. Look at how less remorse when those thugs killed Veronica Baker in North Carolina. Now, none of that's going to get any coverage. The thing about it is, what's the poor child's name, the late child? What was his name? Cannon? Is it Cannon? Hannity or something? I'm saying it wrong. I don't want to get it wrong. But it's like, I think people they're getting angry about that. I'm just thinking, it's Hinnant, Cannon Hinnant. A beautiful kid. And I'm just thinking, I've seen people kind of lash out. I've even seen people lashing out at President Trump and I'm just thinking, the man is double fisting all of this stuff. He can only do so much at one time. How do you know he's not working on it? How do you know? He's had to have heard the name. But see, that's what I'm saying. But, the same people many of these people are going to make, the peace component of the UN agenda says goes with the gun confiscation. So that's where Lightfoot and all these people are going to make their case to get guns off the streets. They're not going to do anything to save any lives or to maintain freedoms, liberties, or the Second Amendment. They're going to use that to go against. But I told you guys earlier that, she has deployed the CPD onto, they're walking the block because they were protesting outside of doing things outside of her house. So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to look at that. But I know it's a part of the agenda in which they want to the peace element is where they want to eliminate guns. I mean, I think is the UN arms treaty that was set up. I think that's only maybe one step away. Who knows if these people get into power, what they'll do. Shout out to everybody in the stream. I appreciate you guys so much for coming in on your Thursday/Friday. Thursday night/Friday morning. I really appreciate it. And I'm going to be wrapping up the stream. And I hope you guys are off to a great weekend. The rapper says, Tommy Sotomayor speaks of the crime in the Black community that BLM never talks about, like that 5-year-old girl who was murdered. Yeah, she's that lady is very wicked. Yeah, a lot of wicked people running these. I told you guys that, that matriarchal governance, it's not looking good. And they all seem to have the same symptoms. I think Governor Kristi Noem has been the most standout governor, I think, in the country. She hosted the July 4th, can I say, spectacular, if you will. And I think they did little or no shutdowns on their pandemic. So, but there's speaking of that, there's like mass exodus everywhere, and I'm just thinking, she better hope that people don't start moving over there, because you got mass exodus out of New York, mass exodus out of California, and I would imagine that some of these other cities you've got mass exodus happening. All right, guys, I really appreciate you guys for coming in. Thank you guys for taking care with these elements on the Channelytics. I appreciate it. And I'm not sure about tomorrow. I'm not scheduled, but I appreciate you guys for hanging around. If something comes up, just be on the lookout. I appreciate you guys. And have a great rest of your Thursday night/Friday morning into the weekend. Drop the StreamYard? What did you say? Drop the StreamYard from Old Head News? What would you? All right, guys.